All right, it's 10:30, so I guess we can start. Um, all right, so first of all, do you guys hear me? And can you guys hear Steven? Um, if you can type on
Hello.
the message chat, it would be great.
So far, so good. We had the one guy.
Okay,
He said he could hear us.
cool. All right, and could you also make sure that you see the first slide and both of our videos? Awesome. All right. So yeah, we can get started. So hello. So welcome to this webinar on how to make profitable tutorials in 4 steps. My name is Carlo Sansonetti, and I'm the host, and my co-host here is Stephen Nipping.
Hello.
So today we're going to go through this process, and this process, has in the past has worked for so many people, and allowed a lot of people to create, amazing results. But before we move forward, I would like to make sure that we tell a little bit about, me and Steve. So I am Carlos Sansonetti. I'm the co-founder of the tutorial platform CG Circuit. And I'm also a senior technical artist at Blizzard in-game cinematics. And in the past, I've worked from video games, documentaries, visual effects, animation, TV animation, etc. And I have a big passion for teaching, and so that's why I created the platform CG Circuit. And yeah, that's what I love to do. And I love anything rigging and everything. Animation and visual effects. So that's me, Steve.
I'm Steve. I make the Applied Houdini tutorial series, which hopefully you're familiar with. Maybe not. If you're not, check it out. New lesson just came out last week. That's the plug I was ready to do from the moment this started. Anyway, I've been in the industry for 10 years. I started at DreamWorks Animation. I was at the Mill, Atomic Fiction, and for the last 4 years or so, I've been at ILM. I also really love to teach, and I think you'll find that is a thread that runs through this whole talk, is not just a desire for profitability, but a desire to teach and to convey knowledge. That's probably the main success factor, so hopefully you're coming here with that too.
Very true.
Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And both of us have amazing beards.
Yes.
You notice,
And I had more hair in that picture.
Yeah, it's true. That's. I was surprised
Yeah.
to see the.
Well, I'm bald now.
I gotta, yeah.
All right. So next is a little bit about CG Circuit. I'll go through this like really quick. So I'm not sure if you guys, how many of you know of CG Circuit, but it is a tutorial platform, where you can upload content, kind of like YouTube, and allows you to upload different kinds of tutorials, from text tutorials all the way to actual online classes with interaction with students. And one of the things that we do is that we help people with promotion of their tutorials. So people that publish on CG Circuit, we help with promotion. And then we also help people bring the content over. So if some people come to us, in the past, a lot of people came from Udemy or other platforms. If they have content there and they want to bring it to CG Circuit, we basically take the content and upload it for them and set it up for them, so they don't have to worry about uploading everything. So because I wanted to skim through CG Circuit, if you have any other questions about CG Circuit, you can contact us at info@cgcircuit.com. So now about this webinar. So this webinar is divided in 4 sections, hence the title. And it's going to be divided, it's going to be between 1 and 2 hours long, though, we're going to try and keep it, between 1 and 1.5 hours. But if it goes beyond that, I just wanted to make sure that I state that in case you have somewhere to go. And also there's going to be at the end of each step or the end of each section, we're going to, me and Steve are going to have a conversation about that. For example, the first step or the first section is about research. So we're going to have a conversation and see what Steve has done that has been successful for him. And then if you guys have any questions during the webinar, there should be a Q&A button on Zoom. So please use that and don't use the chat to ask your questions. So that way, because basically we are going to collect all those questions. So the questions are going to be all in one spot. And we're going to answer them, though, at the end of the webinar. So at the end of the webinar, we're going to go through the Q&A little window here, and we're going to try to answer all the questions. If we cannot answer all the questions, then we are going to email it directly to you, and so you have the answer. So then this webinar also is going to be recorded. It's being recorded right now, and I'm going to make it available after today for a limited time. I'm going to send out a link to where you can watch it. So now about this process, about the process that we're going to go, we're going to examine, right? So it's a process that I shared in many one-on-one meetings here and there. And again, it's been a great, this process has a really good success rate. So whatever your goal is, if you want to become profitable, if you want to just help people and reach a large audience, the process applies to both of those cases. So, and there's multiple processes around. There's many ways for success. So this is just one that has been proven to be successful. So we're going to go in a lot of detail in research, a lot of detail in how you plan it. So, it might seem overwhelming, but again, this is not the only way to go about it, because you can still start smaller. And that's a lot of times what I recommend, especially if it's the first time you do this, you create content that is, and also adapt with your audience. So if you are applying this process, but then you get a feedback from your audience that says otherwise, stick with what your audience says, because in the end, that's the audience that you're trying to help, right? And like Steve said, the key thing to success is wanting to help people. It's not wanting to sell. All right, so now we start the first step, which is research. And again, at the end of this step, Steve and I are going to have a quick conversation. So first of all, is look around for the same content, the content that has the same subject of what you want to teach. So of course, the dream is to be, the first on the market, the first on the market with a topic that is very popular or is going to become very popular, right? So that's obviously the best case scenario. But most of the time, that is basically very rare. Most of the time, that's not going to happen. So instead of being like if you feel like when you see a lot of content already online on the same subject, don't get discouraged, because it's actually something that can help you make your own content better. So once you go, so with that in mind, look around for content on the same subject. And then once you do that, check for the following things in order of importance. I try to list these things in order of importance. So if you are, for example, if you go on YouTube, because it's probably the biggest source of this research, you check for the number of views, and then check the number of comments. So if you have a video on YouTube that is on the same subject that you want to teach, and it has a lot of comments, that makes it very compelling and very good for you, because it shows engagement. So it shows that people are very interested in that subject. So, and also if there's a lot of replies to comments, that shows even more engagement. So people are likely a lot more interested in that type of subject. So check for that, for the number of views first, comments, and replies to other comments. And of course, number of likes. And so what I like to do then is define, after you look at these, you know, after you start your research, research basically between 10 or 50 courses that have the same subject that you want to teach, and look at those those items right there, right? And based on those items, you can assign like a popularity score, right? That you can define what that is, as long as they're based on those items listed there. And, you know, of course, 50 videos is, you know, it's a long time, right? Like you go 50 videos, look at all the comments, read all the comments. It takes a long time. So that's why I say between 10 and 50. You know, you can do less than 10, but, you know, I feel like, you know, 3 years, I find that 10 is the minimum, right? To have a valid enough data for you to go on. So then once you've searched these 5 to 50, 10 to 50 courses, what I would recommend to do is to visit the five courses that have the highest popularity score. So you research 10 to 50 courses and you apply to all of those a popularity score. Now get the top 5 popularity score, right? And then go back into those 5 videos or tutorials, and then take note on the following. So based on the comments that you read, what can you understand that the main, you know, pain point is for people? So this is where you can really understand what people are struggling in learning, and that's your opportunity to you know, to basically teach that specific pain point. And it's very powerful, because like that, you're going to help directly you know, the people by teaching exactly what they're struggling with. So then you write down what people like or don't like about that specific video, that specific course that you're looking at. And so that way it can tell you ways that you can basically you know, it can tell you things that you can focus on while you teach your own, and things that or things to avoid, right? If you were thinking of doing something similar to what that author was doing, you know, those comments, you know, if you see from the comments, then people didn't like that, you know, certain things, you can avoid those certain things, right? And of course, one of the questions that I get most of the time is like, okay, but I don't want to copy the subject, you know, the tutorial that I have in front of me, right? Of course not. This is not about copying a content and an existing content. So that's why at that point you can really think about how you can give it your spin. You know, like you can add. You always keep in mind that you're going to add your own way of teaching, your own way to explain, your own personality, and that makes it a completely different tutorial. The other very important thing is that to look at when you are looking at these 5 courses is by reading the comments, see the most common terms that people use. And this is going to play a huge role later on when we do promotion, because you're starting to collect keywords that you're going to use later on in your promotion. So this is very, very important. It's a very tedious process, but it's super, super important. So after that, write down those takeaways. You know, after you take note of all of this, write down what is the biggest takeaways to you. What are the things that you learned by taking note of these items here? And once you have that, print it out or write it down, and always have it in front of you throughout the production of your tutorial, because that's going to keep you like really, really focused. So the other thing to research is where does your audience hang out, right? So again, this is going to play a role on promotion, but it's also it plays a lot of role in what you need to focus your tutorial in. So look at, you know, make a list of all the Facebook groups about the subject. So if you're teaching about rigging, go on all the rigging Facebook groups, or on all the if you're teaching animation, all the Facebook groups on animation and so forth, but also forums, and also research the Twitter, the popular Twitter hashtags on the subject, so you can use it during your promotion. But also in blogs and podcasts. What are those blogs and podcasts that talk about the subject that you want to teach. And that plays a huge role because after you're done with this content, you spend a lot of time on it. Now you want to promote it. You can go to these blogs and podcasts and contact the owner or the owner of the blogs and podcasts and ask if they would be interested in interviewing you so that you can talk about yourself, your story, and your content, right? So you can reach a broader audience. Because again, I will repeat this, throughout the webinar. It's not about reaching people to sell, but it's about reaching people to help, right? That's main focus. And of course, more. If you think of any other things like LinkedIn groups and all of that, obviously you can probably get the picture now that you have this list. So if you think of any other places where your audience hangs out, write it down. All right, Steve. What do you think about this research thing?
Yeah, I think that you're certainly right about people have been making tutorials successfully for a while, but you'll also see different people teaching the same subject, and why not? Usually what happens is, I started doing this because I saw video tutorials and I just didn't like them. I didn't like the ones that I saw. So I thought, I'll bring my way of teaching to it and maybe people will like that. And that's enough of a reason to try to do your own spin on it, because that might be valuable to some people, or a lot of people, as it turns out. Mm-hmm. And yeah, researching, I think even just an idle interest in the subject matter, you're probably already familiar with some of the things that are out there. For me, as somebody who teaches Houdini tutorials, I'm a big fan of the Intagma tutorials, for example. So I watch those and I am inspired by those to do my own work better as well. Mm-hmm. So you'll never stop, if you want to call it researching, or it's really just being engaged with what's out there anyway. I think that it almost becomes less like work, and it's just that, it's just fun to watch the ones, if you find one that you like anyway, like I have.
Like one of the things that I always get is that as soon as people realize that, usually, you're an expert on the subject, or assuming you're an expert on the subject, right? So if you're an expert on the subject, that also means that you know what's out there, you know what's been done as far as content and everything. So for a lot of people that are very interested in teaching and very interested in creating content, they get really, really, they say, why should I do this if there is already stuff out there, right? And a lot of times it's for free, right? So what would you say to people like that think that way?
I think it goes back to the fact that you're here, or you're even interested in doing this in the first place, means that you probably have some drive or some angle on it. First and foremost, things just go out of date. So it's like, if there's stuff that maybe you learned from, that might have been several versions of the program or whatever from before. But also, a lot of times these topics, these computer graphics topics, are not like, well, I read it in a textbook and this is how to do it. A lot of it comes down to technique. So you're teaching an intangible thing, technique, a lot of the times. It's not literally like, well, you could read the manual or you could learn from me. It's like, well, no, you're bringing something that's not in any manual. It's not in a previous tutorial. Mm-hmm. There's so much room for bringing your own personal experience and expertise, which usually manifests as technique. So I think technique in terms of presentation, again, I didn't like a lot of tutorials that I saw. They were too long, they were too dry, they were people like figuring it out as they went, and there's just blah, blah, blah. So there's technique can always be improved on. And then there's the actual technique of the skills that you're trying to impart. I think that is probably the most important thing, because that is always going to be unique. You may not even think that your way is necessarily like, well, maybe my way is a little weird or something, but it's like, but that might be a breakout thing. That might be such a novel, like, did you hear about Vishal's technique? Like the way he's doing rigging is like crazy. Like it's so cool. And that's it. And that's how it becomes popular and things like that.
Yeah, totally agree. Like I always tell the story of like, when I was in high school, I started doing chemistry, and I have an older brother, 2 years old, took the class 2 years before me. And I was struggling a lot about chemistry, even though I was really excited about it, really excited about it. Like the way that my teacher was explaining things, it would just not the way that I would learn things, right? So then I asked my brother to explain the same exact book from the same exact book, just telling it to me in a different way.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it opened, like I became like super good at chemistry, right? So that's, to me, that always resonated with me, because there was a teacher, a professional teacher, trying to explain these things.
Sure.
Could not get it. And then here comes my brother, just 2 years older, and explains it to me in plainest terms, and I'm like, oh, it's making sense now.
Yeah.
So I think that's
absolutely. It's the teaching method. It's not usually the content that's
exactly. And that's what basically what I meant when I say think that you'll always have your personality, your way of teaching. Cool. And one last thing about researching, is it something that you did, something special you did for when you were researching for your tutorials in Applied Houdini?
It really just depended on the tutorial. I think from the get-go, for my earliest tutorials, I just had something to say. Like I was just like, enough of these other tutorials. I know how I want to do it. But I have found since then, as I've come up with other ideas for subsequent ones, that I think implicitly, I think that I have found, again, from being out there and seeing what's available, I have found that certain types of things are simply more popular than others. I have researched that from my own lessons and how well they do or don't do. But even just seeing other people's things, you find, and again, my domain is Houdini effects. So I might find that, things that are really explosive and crazy, like people respond to that. And I tend to see that does well, as opposed to maybe this more technical thing is very important, but maybe not quite as popular. And that goes for mine and for other people's. So I think that, that kind of just being engaged with the community and seeing what's out there. Like you mentioned, there are Facebook groups, for example, for Houdini effects. And you'll see a constant stream of people posting tutorials, free or otherwise. And you can clearly see what's popular and what's not. And ultimately, I will still teach what I want to teach, but I think that if I could find a happy medium between, these are things that people want, and it's something that I want to teach, it just makes sense to do that first. Maybe I'll do like 2 popular things and then maybe one for myself that I really want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you still want to stay inspired, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I still want to do what I want to do, and hopefully I might even give you something that you didn't know you wanted. But yes, it's still true that it's going to be more successful. It's going to be more, I hate to use the word profitable, simply to you find a market of things that people want. And in my case, it's explosions.
Yes. Great. So now before we move forward, I just had to move the little window that I have with our faces on so that I can look in camera instead of looking there. Do you guys still see our faces?
I put mine right underneath the camera.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm looking almost at the camera.
Exactly. That's why I put it now.
Yeah.
All right. So next step is planning. So at this point, you should have received the tutorial planner, right? If not, I'll make sure that, if not, let me know and I'll make sure to send it to you. So that's another tool that we give so that people are focused. They stay focused with their content. So basically, the first thing is the main subject, right? What do you want to teach, right? And one trick that I like to tell people is that keep that that subject line, the main subject, to less than 4 words. If you have more than 4 words, then refocus, right? Again, this is all about staying focused, right, on the message, staying focused on the subject. So less than 4 words. I mean, there's obviously exceptions, but this is what I found to be a good starting point. So viewer benefits. So in the viewer benefits, section or field, I try to be as specific as possible, because this will help you with research. So for example, if you say as benefits, the viewer benefits, you say people who have never rigged anything in their career will have a basic understanding of the rigging concept used in a production environment. So this tells you a lot, right? It tells you, obviously there's about rigging, people who've never rigged anything before. So maybe once you want to promote your content, you can promote it to schools, and et cetera, right? So be as specific as possible, because in your case, it will give you a lot of information to what to do when you want to promote your course. And then, audience, again, be, tell what your audience is. Is it students? Is it, try to be as specific as possible. And one more thing about the viewer benefits, it's always good to be very specific, because when you start, we'll talk about this a little bit in a few slides, but it's always good to be focused, so that when you create your description, when you create, if you want to put a post in the Facebook groups, you know exactly what the benefits are. Like if you were very specific here, you can literally take that text and paste it there. I mean, it should be that much specific. So that's good. So audience, again, be very specific. Are you targeting is kind of bad word in my opinion, but I used it. So is your audience students? So again, be very, very specific. And then the takeaways. So the takeaways means, what are the people going to learn after they watch your tutorial, right? So here I say, try to complete the sentence, my audience will be able to, and then you say specifically what they will be able to, right? So in my rigging tutorials, I try to structure it in such a way that at the end of it, like if people really watch really well all the tutorials, they will be able to, my audience will be able to rig in a production environment, right? And that is my statement, and obviously make sure that your content does provide that kind of information. But that's in the tutorial planner, in the takeaways, try to start your sentence with, my audience will be able to, and whatever they will be able to do after they watch your tutorial. So this is about the tutorial planner. So the other thing is mark your calendar. So making a content, again, you can start very small. You can start with just a simple HTML text tutorial, right? But if you are making a tutorial series, kind of like what Steven has done, there's a lot of work involved, right? Probably many weeks. And then if this is your first time, probably a couple of months, right? Not working every day, of course, but a couple of months of every other day you work on this, right? Because it takes time, right? So because of that, I would suggest to look at your calendar and say, okay, I'm going to work from the beginning of September to the end of October, right? So those are that period of time. And this came up, like, if you have to think about if Game of Thrones is on, don't do it through doing Game of Thrones, because you want to watch Game of Thrones, right? So anyway, so mark your calendar, look at your calendar. If there is anything that you really want to, that is going to take you away from from being focused on making a tutorial, move it to another period of time, right? So that's why mark your tutorial. Look at your calendar and mark your calendar. So the other thing that I like to tell people is that tell your friends that you're about to making this course, because that's usually, I mean, I know that works for me. It is going to keep me honest, right? Because making a tutorial is time consuming. So if I tell people about this, about that I'm making this tutorial, I find that people start to ask me, so how is the tutorial going, right? And that keeps me motivated, and so that's great. So the other important thing that I always mention is that if you do live with somebody, and if you're married, children, talk to your spouse or talk to your roommate about the fact that you're going to do this, because maybe if you're married with children, you have to dedicate some time to the tutorial, right? So it's better to let them know, okay, I'm going to be dedicating this time here. But it's also true that if you are either married with children, or if you have a roommate, it's also important to let them know, so that they know that at some point you're going to start recording, and so there's no noise in the room, etc. So very important. So this is the first part about planning. So the other thing now is we talk about the course outline. This is probably, in my opinion, this is probably the most important thing about your entire production of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's really like you take everything that you have in your brain and you dump it on paper. And the very powerful thing is that you can switch things around, right? You have a bullet point in Word, it's super easy to move things around and everything. So this is the time where you spend enough time to figure out what is the structure of my tutorial. So we start obviously with the subject. It could be your title, right? That could end up being the title of your tutorial. And then write down the main large topics, right? So these topics usually end up becoming chapters in your tutorial, right? So again, you were talking about a single tutorial here. So if you have a title, then you talk about the large main topics, which become chapters. And then you take these these large topics and you break it down into smaller ones, and these become the actual videos, right? So what you write at this level is what you are writing, basically the titles of what your videos are going to be named. And if you decide to, so usually we say that a video should be between 5 and 10 minutes long. 10 minutes is already longish. So in my opinion, the best time, the best length for a video is between 5 and 7 minutes. So if you start thinking about this video and you see yourself talking more or longer about this video than in one video, than in 5 to 7 minutes, break it down into 2, right? It's it's perfectly fine. And optionally, in the outline, you can write an intro and outro for each video. So I am not a native English speaking, right? English is my first language, is my second language. So for me, I really have a hard time starting a video and ending a video, right? So when you start, you go like, okay, welcome. And then at the end, you never know how you finish, right? You say, I don't know, like it's very funny. Sometimes I say funny things. So because of that, in my outline, a lot of times I write for each video, I write a little intro and a little outro, so that when I'm recording, I can read that and then go into doing the demo for that video. And then when I know that I'm about to end, my eyes go to the outro and read that, or memorize it, whatever works better for you. So that way the video has a nice flow, it's self-contained, it's nice and one other thing about the length of the video is that when you make a video that is 5 to 7 minutes long, this plays a huge role later on, because if you do make a mistake that you want to correct, if your video is very short, it's very easy to make again, right? Super easy. But also it plays a huge role for people watching, because when they are watching a big tutorial, if they watch it and they like it, and then they apply what they learn, but then if they remember that you talked about a specific subject, it's much easier for them to remember what video it was if the video is short. because it's going to be a lot more focused. And so if they open that video, it's also very easy for them to scroll between 5 minutes, instead of scrolling between 20, 30 minutes of video. So finding information is a whole lot easier for people. And so they like the video more. So you help them more. So and then the other thing is a cross-reference. Once you're done with your outline, cross-reference your outline with your research and try to answer these questions. So is my course addressing my audience's pain points, right? So go back and say, do I have a video that specifically addresses what the audience main point is, or what people liked about those tutorials that are out there? And then do some of my videos titles have those are the same keywords that I found, right? This is very important, because if you want to be found by Google later on in searches, that plays a huge role. So make sure to write in your title, in your description, in the name of your videos, try to have as many of those keywords as possible. And then here I have an example of an outline. This is the outline that comes from my rigging tutorial. So as you can see here, I have the title, rigging, character rigging techniques. Then the chapters, or the big topics, which is, intro and base controls is first, and then rigging a flexi spine. And then the third is head, neck, jaw, and eye. So those are the main subjects. But then I break it down even more. So for example, in rigging a flexi spine, I have the initial setup, and then how to model a proxy mesh, the flexi mesh creation, etc. Right? So by looking at that, you already know kind of what the topic is about, how in depth the person goes and creates that flexi spine in this case. And it's also helpful for you because you already, it's just a matter of just like start recording and you already have all those names, so you don't have to worry about how to name a video. So the structure of your tutorial is already done. And in the first, in the intro base controls, you can see also an example of the intro and outro. So that I was talking about before. So just so that I'm clear about the importance of an outline, is that this structure right here, if I compare it to what my tutorial actually looks on, in this case, CG Circuit, it's basically one-to-one. You see there is introduction and base control, and then all the videos that have the same name and so forth. So that outline, once it's created, that is the time for you to switch things around if you need to. But then once it's done, commit to it, and that's going to become the actual structure of your tutorial, right? So super, super important. Do you want to add anything real quick to that, Stephen?
No, I mean, I guess our discussion's coming up anyway. I'd say in general, though, yeah, the outline is so important. And my outline, maybe because of the way I'm teaching, where I'm kind of building a scene up from scratch, is often like almost a pathway through creating an effect. Yeah, so it's definitely organized by category, but because it's also a series of things, and maybe just my teaching style, but I will often I want to build something, and sometimes I'll even like take you down the wrong path a little bit intentionally, being like, this is what you would think to do, and then back you up and say, and that's why you don't do it that way, and this is a way better way. So it's not even a linear path sometimes. It's I will build out my lesson in Houdini, and then I will then reconstruct it. And as I'm reconstructing it, I will chart the outline of the sequence of it. And yes, try to coalesce these things into categories and things like that, cool. Which typically happens anyway.
Great. Yeah, I asked you this not during the conversation because I think the outline is such an important thing that
for sure.
I can't stress that enough. So then next, after you're done with your outline, reference it with your tutorial planner, and try to ask these questions. From the list of my video, is it apparent the benefit of to the viewer, right? So make sure that those benefits are really, really clear, right? Even in the name, in which you name your videos and stuff like that. So the other one is, can I add or remove any topics that are useful or not so useful to my audience? So this is the time where you kind of like, okay, I forgot to do this because in my tutorial planner I was really aiming at this, but in my list of videos I actually don't talk about it. So make sure to add it. But if your videos they go into a tangent that really doesn't really pertain to what you want to try to be useful for with your audience, then remove it, right? Maybe you can make another tutorial about that specific things that you're removing. And also for each topics, write down, so when I say topics for each chapter, write down the things that people will be able to do after watching that section. This is also very important. So the other one, we talked about this, the outline is very easy to change. So you can change it at any time, and this is the time to change things. You do not want to change things during recording because that's a lot more work. And then finally, print your outline and keep it at your desk at all times. And what I do is that when I record, sometimes I go like, I really want to talk about this other thing that this video doesn't really cover. So I might add another video after the current video that I just recorded. So what I do is I actually go back to the outline and add that, right? So it's always in written form, so that at the end, again, your outline is exactly what you upload. All right, so I'm curious how you planned your tutorials.
Yeah, it's probably pretty interesting. It takes a long time, it really does. But even that is fun because you're building something. So like what I often do is I will think about something I want to do. So it might be like, oh, this lesson's about how to make sparks, which is a lesson, sparks and lightning. So I think about it, it's like, so I know how to do sparks and lightning. I know that I know key industry things that are never talked about outside of the industry. Stuff like crazy motion blur, tricks to like make motion blur look good and be cheap. And so something like that. So it's like, I know where I am and I know where I want to get to. So I want to teach those things. But then it's like, now how do I make it compelling? How do I make it interesting? Because you could just be dry and dump a whole bunch of like, well, this is what I would do. But if for no other reason that you want to get people interested in your lesson and stick with it to the end, you want it to be cool. So I guess in the case of my lesson, it's like, here's like an electronic source and it's shooting out, electricity and there's sparks flying, but then there's also like kind of a mirrored ground. So it's kind of like amplifying it. And then the camera spit. So it's like, oh, now it's like, this could be something from an action movie or I don't know, something like that. So that process is often me just thinking for a very long time about what that might look like. In the lesson, it's kind of tossed off casually, like, let's try this. Let's just do this, because by the time you get to it, it's so like old hat because you've been thinking about it for far too long. And so, yeah, I'll often just think about it.
I see.
Think on the bus.
You said it takes a long time. How long does it take for you?
That's a great question too. I would say weeks.
Okay.
Weeks, probably. I mean, when I'm bored at work, I'll think about it. Yeah, totally. Like, because I'll keep thinking about like the details of like, should there be 3 balls that get electrocuted? Should there be the mirror? And eventually, and then I'll start. So then the second phase is, now I'll start to do it. I'll start to make it as like it's very rough. So I'll make, and again, this is for my lessons because I am building effects work. It's in Houdini. For those of you just joining us. So it is a step-by-step thing. So I can go crazy with it. I can try things, they don't work. I'll often try things. This part takes even longer. This will take me weeks again of not 8 hours a day, but maybe an hour every night.
Okay.
I'll be speccing out this tutorial. I'll be trying to make it look cool. And it's funny, you mentioned talking to your spouse or loved ones to keep you on track. I asked my girlfriend, like, is this interesting? Like, she's not an effects artist. She has no stake in it. But man, if I can appeal to her with like what she's seeing, great. Can only imagine that people actually want to make this thing will think.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I'll show her, and it'll be like with the newest lesson with the pedals, like she had great advice about how to make it like maybe there's just too much of a like there's too much going on. Like, can you like maybe make the colors stand apart more? And I'm like, yeah, good point. Between you and me, I give her 1% of the profits now as a little incentive, and it works. It's great. So now I got an extra pair of eyes on it.
All right, I'll put it in the deck once.
Absolutely. Yeah. So finally, I developed the actual scene, and then my favorite part. And I don't know if this is just me, but my favorite part is then, and you alluded to this, is stripping away, removing the stuff that is superfluous, that is not the focus, that is, and I'm not even talking about the recording of it, but just stripping away all the things that I want to make it consolidated as possible. Because I want the lesson to not take forever.
Yeah, for sure.
So I strip it away and I refine it and I refine it and refine it. And even if that means that it doesn't include some of the nice little nuanced things that maybe I do actually would want to do, for the sake of the lesson not being 100 hours long, I'll strip it down to be tight and streamlined. Only then that I have the thing that I want to make as the final product, now I build the outline from that. That's me. And that might be a little different than if you're doing a rigging tutorial. Now with this final product in mind, I will organize my thoughts of now how will I attack building this?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's when you get those categories, and that's when you get sometimes that, well, we try this first, but why isn't that the best way? And then we try this, and oh, that's the best way. We'll do that. Then I have my outline. Now, I think that I transferred everything that I did into my outline. I may not have. I will then rebuild it from the outline.
Okay.
I will regenerate what I have done from the outline and go through it. And every single time, it's like, oh, forgot to include that. Or, oh, I didn't really explain well why I'm doing that. And so, like you said, now I can change the outline before I record it and not be like, oh, God, I forgot to mention that, So now the outline has been the benefit of being derived from a great product, has been rebuilt from it. And now I am sure that when I record it, I know I'll be able to recreate exactly what I want to do. And I know that it will explain exactly what I want to explain.
That's cool.
So it's perfect. And then,
awesome.
And then that's it. And then I rarely have to I'll still have to make some corrections, but there's just a few. And again, like you said, keep them short so that you can re-record them. And I certainly, even with all that preparation, have to re-record things. But it's fine. And it gets better every time I re-record it anyway. And by the time I'm done, I will feel either good or bad about how it all went. And sometimes I'll go back and re-record things again.
I see.
Yeah.
That's cool. So the one question is, when you record, it's not necessarily about planning, but I'm curious, do you, like, one of the biggest benefits that I have about creating content is that I actually end up learning a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Do you have the same?
Absolutely. Part of what you will find is, as people that are in the industry, a lot of times you're using tools that maybe your company has or something, and you can't recreate those for legal reasons and for a variety of other reasons. So what you end up doing is you end up learning how to do it with, let's say, the vanilla stuff that comes out of the box. Houdini is very powerful, but you can always build tools on top of it. I mean, that's what you're always doing. So when I'm conveying something to a student for the first time, they don't have the benefit of all these tools that like years of people built. So I am conveying something to them, to somebody that doesn't have all that. So I have to basically almost relearn myself. Like, I have to build this thing that I'm used to just having. And you learn so much along the way. And especially if I'm trying to plus out the video in general, like the effect that I'm trying to convey, it's like, Oh, wouldn't it be cool if it did that too? I wonder how I would do that. I bet I'd do it this way. Oh, it is that way. Now I can tell people the thing that I just learned.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if the core concepts were stuff that I probably came to the table with already,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's still so much extra. And it's a way to almost organize your thoughts. Maybe when you were doing it
Mm-hmm.
at work or for your regular stuff, you did it and it was good, but maybe you even could have done it better then. So now that you're just doing it again, you're finding a better way to do it anyway. So it's like the best version of what you could be teaching.
Yeah, totally. Like, and there's so many times where I'm using like a certain option, you know, like I guess at work, I know I click this button because I know it does this and I'm able to do this.
Yeah.
But then when I think about it, it's like, but what does actually happen in the background? Like what actually happens in Maya when I click that button? And when I teach, I kind of want to explain that.
Yeah.
So I go and research it and then it goes, that's very interesting. And so I share it.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. So the next step is about production. So step 3, and it's about production. And we start, first of all, I want to start with, you know, a lot of times, you know, people ask me, okay, but what, you know, I don't want to spend a lot of money on a microphone. You know, what microphone should I use? So you know, you don't have to spend, the quick answer is that you don't have to spend a lot of money for a microphone. Microphones nowadays are really cheap, really, really good. Yeah. So what I use a lot of time is this microphone right here, Sennheiser SC60, and right now is at $40 on Amazon. Is not like the best quality, but you know, for me it's easy. I put it on, you know, when I do feedback for my workshop, you know, great. If you want to spend a little bit more money, $25 more, you can buy this guy. And this guy, a lot of really, really good podcasters use it. It has an amazing audio quality. And a lot of people are asking me, what about, you know, the Yeti Blue microphone? You know, that is a great microphone. That's actually the one that I'm using right now. And but it does. A lot of people think that the Audio Technica works better. In fact, I'm gonna invest, you know, those $64 on buying it. The only thing about the Audio Technica is I believe it's not sold outside the United States. So that's just a little something.
Right.
Yeah. And so the thing about the Audio Technica is that for the Yeti Blue, like right now I cranked up the volume so that you can hear my voice well. But sometimes when you record a tutorial, you don't want to hear anything around you. You just want to hear the voice. So if I used the Blue Yeti, I have to turn down the volume so it doesn't pick up the room noises, and then I have to have it really, really close to the, and sometimes it's kind of uncomfortable. The Audio Technica has a very good, like it's much more narrow. The audio picks up, doesn't pick up a lot of room noises, so you can crank up the volume and still get the voice really, really well. So that's that. So the next thing is the capture software. You know, that's another, a lot of time people ask us about what capture software should I use. What we recommend is TechSmith Camtasia. We're not affiliated with them. You know, we just like the product. So I invested, I don't know if it's, sorry, I don't have a price on this, is either $125 or $250.
Yeah, I think it's the second one.
$250, okay.
I think.
Though it's a great product, and if you're serious about making tutorials, you know, you will make that money back in a heartbeat. So yeah, really, really great. And I like it so much that I have a few features here. So the key features is that obviously it records your screen, but it also has a multi-track editing. So instead of going to another software to do editing, you do it all in Camtasia, so you don't have to do anything, you know, you don't have to render it and then re-render it after the editing, so it stays all in Camtasia. You can add annotation, like video annotations. You can add transitions, little animations, and also voice narration. And voice narration plays a big role in promotion as well, and I can talk a little bit about that as well. And you can also add audio and visual effects. So especially if you're doing tutorials on people that are, you know, people like, for example, on After Effects, you know, motion graphics, kind of an audience, you kind of want to add a little bit of spice to the videos to show that you know, you don't want to leave it bare for people to do that for a living, kind of thing.
Yeah, if I could jump in, it also bears repeating that neither of us are sponsored by Camtasia.
Yes, exactly.
But it is fantastic. It's surprisingly good. When I first started, I tried using some free ones that I had found that will literally record your desktop and not much else. Or maybe they'll record your desktop and maybe even have a nonlinear editor, like a multi-track editor. Although I don't know if there's any free ones to do that. Maybe there are. But there's just something about, it's been really nice working with Camtasia because it anticipates a lot of what you want to do for this kind of work. It has all the things that you mentioned there, but there's even lots of little things that it anticipates, like batch rendering of many movies. You can put like little markers along the way and it will just split them up for you and send them out. Like it just does a lot. And these things that you've listed here is everything you need to do. So it's well worth it. And even though it does cost more than the microphone, the amount of time it will save you rather than wrestling with, I think, other, at least the other free solutions I've encountered, I'd be willing to be proven wrong. It just works great. And it makes that part of what is already a labor-intensive process, it makes it that much more manageable.
Yeah. And in the past, it's also worth mentioning that in the past, I've always used Camtasia for many, many years. But I do remember the time when, even though Camtasia has a editor, I was still going to Premiere because at that time, Camtasia would crash quite a bit.
Oh no!
But nowadays, in the past 3-4 years, they've done a really good job. Like I haven't had a crash, and I don't think
I've ever had one. I only started on Camtasia 7, so it's no idea what happened before that.
I've received, like, it was not just my experience, but also from other
people.
Yeah,
I believe
nowadays, it's really, really good product. But if you do not want to spend $250, there are some solutions out there, and I have not used these two solutions that I'm going to mention, but I've heard good things. So the first one is Screencast-O-Matic, and yes, Steve, this one also has an editor in there, like Camtasia. And based on what I see from the website, it seems to be pretty solid, but the devil is also always in the details. And then the other one is OBS Studio. Oh, and one thing about Camtasia and Screencast-O-Matic is that there is both for Linux and Mac and PC. And OBS Studio is very intimidating, but it has a lot of functionality, especially if you want to do live streaming and stuff like that. But it's a little bit intimidating at first. But the nice thing about it is that A, is free, and B, it's for PC, Mac, and Linux. So, and if you guys have any other experience with any other free tools, I would love to hear.
Yeah, report back.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now with the hardware and software, talked about, talk a little bit about actual recording. So this is the area where I get a little nerdy, and so think about the disk location for your project. So this is, for me, it's very important. My time is very limited. I don't have a lot of time, and so any time that I can save, any chances that I can save time, I'll take. So, for example, disk location I usually use for my project, especially when I'm doing outline, the planning stuff. I usually choose a folder that is either on Dropbox or Google Drive. So that way, where I'm everywhere, even on my phone, it's always synced up. So if I remember something that I want to add in my outline, I go into Dropbox, open it up, boom, done, right? I added it. So it's really great. And also something that I like to think about is also the naming convention that I give to my videos, because it's true, the outline gives me a great structure, right? But I want to have that same structure on disk, right? So that it's easy for me to recognize which videos are for the first chapter, so that it's easy for me to upload and everything. So what I use is, for example, if a video is on Squash and Stretch, I would choose 1.001 and then Squash and Stretch.mp4. That is like the first number one is the section, and then the first video in that section, and then the name of the video. So that keeps things in order on your disk, and makes it very easy. Because like Steve said, it's already a big process. It's already a long process. So everything that you can do to stay focused and not having to deal with files named incorrectly, it's better that you do it. So this is a good way, a good thing to remember. Then when you're recording, the things that I like to give out this checklist. If you want to make a content that has nice continuity, So the things that you got to think about is the microphone position relative to the mouth. So I look at, like, if I use a headset with a microphone here, some people, because you want to avoid plosives, the p and the, those letters that will create, it's called a plosive when the air hits the microphone. You want to avoid those, right? So are you going to put your microphone below, or you're going to put a microphone above, right? Like I used to put it below, but now with this, I can't do it anymore. So now I put it above, things like that. So think about those things, so that, and write it down so that next time what to do if you're going to record a video 2 weeks after today, kind of thing. Also the volume level, if you are going to work continuously on the same tutorial, you're probably not going to change the volume level, but do think about the volume level. You don't want to have too many. It's good to have a volume that is low, because you can make the volume higher. But if you have such a high volume that the word gets distorted, you can't really save that. So make sure that never happens. Also, if you're on camera, you make sure that you think about your light setup. And like in this case, I have a couple of lights here. It's always good to be present.
Or in my case, it's very dark.
You still look good though.
Thank you. I try to catch the light from the window a little bit.
Yeah, I mean sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, if I do this, it's dark again.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's very important that you mention, if you are not using lights at all and you're using light from the outside, think about that, because you might want to just record at the same time every day, so you get the same lighting throughout all of your videos. And of course, like I said before, keep your course outline in front of you. So those are the checklists that I like to give out to people. Then do a test recording, so that you can make sure that you go through that checklist, do the test recording. If the test recording goes well, it doesn't have to be long. It can be like 10-15 seconds. You read something, right? A lot of times when I used to do it without reading, I didn't know what to say in the test, and so it would not be a good test. Now I just have a piece of text in front of me and I just read that. And then these are some of the recording tips that I like to give out as well. When you are recording, you are going to make mistakes, right? So when you do make those mistakes, what I used to do in the past is to say, okay, I'm gonna because I just said something weird, or maybe I coughed, or maybe whatever reason, I used to stop the video and start over, right? Sometimes that's the only thing you can salvage your video, yes. But what I currently do is I continue, right? I cough, or I make a mistake, or I said something wrong, right? I pause for a few seconds so that later on I see the gap in the audio. So I pause and then I continue, go back a little bit and continue, right? So that way you can fix the errors later on. You can remove that section and then edit it and move forward. So that's saving a lot of time. Sure. Like I said before, the video length should be between 5 and 7 minutes long, for the reasons that we explained before. And basically that's it. I mean, those are the two main tips that I give to people, and then the rest, it's up to you to decide what's your style and stuff. So those are the main two tips that I usually give out. And then editing. So after you recorded everything, you can record a video and then edit it right away, or you can record all of your videos and then edit it all later. It's up to you. And then doing editing, remove any mistakes and enhance the experience, right? So if you want to add any title animation, any annotations, any display shortcuts, that's something else that Camtasia does, is that every time you're talking and you use hotkeys on your keyboard, Camtasia records that. And so if you are telling, okay, copy this and paste it here, but you're forgetting that you're pressing Control-C, Control-V, there is a function that you can say, okay, display the shortcut that I used here. And on the screen, it draws Control-V, Control-C, Control-V on screen for you. So that's another great example of how Camtasia can help. So those are the things that usually happen during editing. So then after you've done all of this, so you've done this for all the videos, you have all the videos in the can ready to go. you start with start writing your description. And this description is something very important. A lot of people just write a couple of words. If the tutorial is how to rig in Maya, the description sometimes people write is rigging in Maya. That's it, right? Instead, because you did a lot of research, because you know what people are looking for, because you know what words people are using, try to use as much as possible and try to tell them, you know, how, so describe how the course helps, right? So the first thing. And then again, think about keywords and SEO. So if you collected all the terminology during your research, this is the time to use it. You use as many of those keywords as possible because it's great for SEO. For those of you who don't know, SEO stands for search engine optimization. And that's the way that Google it crawls into website pages and looks at this terminology, right? So if there is a lot of this terminology that has been used, Google ranks it higher. So if Google ranks it higher, there is a higher chance for that page to go in the first page of search result, which is the most important page, obviously, right? So very, very important. I can do a whole lesson on SEO. I love that subject because, so then mention in your description, mention also who the course is for and who it is not for. You don't want to end up having people like if the tutorial is on for beginners and it's not clear, somebody that is an expert might end up getting it because he's thinking about there's something a little bit different, and then that person goes like, what is this? I don't like this tutorial, bad reviews and so forth. So be very, 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 very specific who the tutorial is not for, and you don't want to waste anybody's time anyway, right? So then one of the things that I always think about is that first sentence. The first sentence is the most important one because the user is gonna read it and they're gonna get either hooked or they're going to change page or scroll down. So that's most of my thinking goes anyway. So an example of the first sentence should contain, the main pain point and solution, right? Like from your research, it should be easy to get what that is. And then what viewers will be able to do after watching. So you see the pattern here, right? Like you collected all that information, now you're applying that information here, and it's great, right? Like if you are in front of the tutorial and you say, oh, after this tutorial, we'll be able to do A, B, and C. I don't know how to do that. That's great. Let me do it, right? Instead of saying, I'm going to teach you rigging, or I'm going to teach you Houdini. Yeah, but what am I exactly going to be able to do after that, right? That's really, really important. So that's description. So now imagery. So imagery, obviously, we are in an industry that is very, very visual, right? It's called visual effects after all. And so it needs to be as appealing to your audience as possible, right? And when I say to your audience is that, there are some differences in sensibility, right? Your audience might have. So be aware of that and make it as appealing to them as possible because you want to catch their eyes because you want to be able to help them as much as possible. So also something that people recognize. This gets a little strange because, some people might use content that is very recognizable, but because of that, they might not have rights to put that on. So be careful of that. But you still want to have something that is very recognizable. Then think brand. I think Steve here has done an amazing job when it comes to branding, because I have to look at the images of his tutorial for a fraction of a second, and I know it's his tutorial, right? So great job there, Steve.
Thank you.
Right? So think brand. So if you come up with your own color scheme, all of your tutorials are going to have with your logo, if you want to go that far. Think of all the font that you use. Think branding, right? So that people they can recognize that it's you. Very, very important. And of course, think promotion. So there are different levels of promotions. I have another course that I do another like right now I don't do it to a big public. I do a one-to-one where I help people promoting their content. And one of the things that I go over in that regard is there are different not steps, but different, I can't think of the term right now, but let's say different steps, right, in promotion. One of those steps, the first step is like you do SEO, you do all the keyword research and everything, right? The second step is like, okay, if you want to promote it, if you want to reach like potentially millions of people, you start doing like actual social media advertisement that you actually pay for, right? So think about that. Even if you don't want to do it right now, but think about that. And because your focus is on creating images for your tutorial. So you have all your assets in front of you. So what I would recommend at this stage is to also look at the main social media, like Facebook, Twitter, and see what they expect if you want to promote on their platform, if you want to advertise on their platform. See the image resolution that they want and create it already, right? Because you never know, you can use it later on, or if it's a platform like CG Circuit, we would ask you those images so that we can use and pay for and use it on Facebook for the promotion of your tutorial. So have it handy. It's always very helpful. But also something like the YouTube thumbnail, right? YouTube tries to do a good job at picking the best thumbnail, but creating a custom thumbnail, it's always good. And a word on YouTube. YouTube has a very, very powerful way of advertising. It's a little bit, it's not necessarily for everybody because it's a little bit complicated because you have to use YouTube, yes, but then you have to use also AdWords, which is a very complex machine, but we've had like amazing results with that. So again, do think about it at this stage. Do create those images because they're gonna open more doors for you later on. So the other thing is a promotional video. So the main promo video on CG Circuit, we give people the ability of upload all the content, obviously, but also there is a section dedicated to a promo video. The promo video is where is the video that gets played before people purchase your content. Is the only video that they can view. So the promo video, what I would do is I would do it 1 to 2 minutes long, and then show visually the interesting parts of the course. And also when you do that, when you create it, be clear about, again, who the tutorial is for and not for, and also what the viewer will be able to do afterwards. Again, that pattern, right? And then if your content comes with example files, talk about it, right? Because people love to be able to download files when they purchase a tutorial or following a tutorial so that they can follow along. So give them an idea of how the structure of those example files is, so that they know how to use them. So this is another thing that we recommend to people, is to create a promotional magnet. That's what name that we're giving it. It's basically what it is. Basically, is a video that you will give out for free, right? This is in case you want to generate revenues, right? Or to reach a lot of people. You can use this video posted on YouTube, on Vimeo. It's given out for free. And what it is really is basically, if you take the videos of all the videos of your tutorials, and you choose a section of your tutorial that is kind of interesting, right? And you edit it, you take it out of your tutorial and edit it out, right? In a way that is self-contained. And then you use a voiceover to basically tell what you're doing in those steps. So you can give it out to people so that people can get used to your teaching style. They can see if you give already some values for free to people. And so, of course, if you're using it on YouTube, you can post that for free. And then in the description of YouTube, you can have a link that points back to your big, more complex content or tutorial. So Steve, I'm really curious about this one.
Okay.
What is your process?
So I was waiting for that question, because I've got right here, I've got my my microphone set up.
Oh, nice.
Here's my plosive blocker.
Nice.
And that this is a Technica, Audio Technica.
Cool.
I don't know what kind it is, but it's in there somewhere underneath this thing, and I got my headphones. Obviously, that's not my process, but that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting here ready for his screen time. I mentioned earlier I definitely use Camtasia.
Hmm.
It's great, so I won't talk about that anymore. Um, it's true that with audio quality, you can get away with a lot now, especially because, well, I said I wasn't going to talk about Camtasia again, but Camtasia has audio leveling. It has noise removal. Uh, it's not perfect. It can't resurrect terrible audio, but even the audio leveling alone, it's like you can just do such professional work now
Hmm.
from home with very little. That's pretty staggering. Um, I think once I record it, I will edit it all at once. So I record it all straight through. I might have to re-record things along the way,
Hmm.
but I record it. It's plop it into Camtasia. I just have it as one long blob.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, one blob. I used to not do that, and maybe I shouldn't do it, but I still do.
Wait,
And
do you record all at once, or do you record and stop one video?
oh well, yeah. So I certainly stop
Okay.
between for every the 7 to whatever minutes. To me, my range is usually more like 5 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
I like your range better, and I wish that I stuck to it more. I try to keep it there, but I will never put a video up that's longer than 15 minutes. But I think 10 minutes. There's a psychological thing I think at 10 minutes that's probably a better limit.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to stick to that. And similarly, overall, um, my lessons have grown. There's been a scope creep where they would be like 45 minutes to an hour, and then they were 2 hours, and then they were 3 hours, then they were 4 hours, then they were like 5.5 hours. And like I tried to strip them down so much, but it still was that long. So I'm still proud of them, but it's like, man, there's just still a limit that it could be overwhelming. Even if in practice it's not, because you only watch these little 10-minute videos.
Yeah, yeah.
In any case, I've tried to and would recommend bringing it back, 2 or 3 hours. People see that. It's like, oh, it's like watching a movie,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I guess a 5 hour could be a very long, epic movie. But in any case, um, yeah, I think I've even gotten feedback from people to that extent where they're like, love your stuff, man, but I'm happy that this is only 3 hours long and
Oh,
not like a
interesting. Yeah,
5.5 hour mega mix.
yeah.
Yeah, so taking that to heart for sure, and so that's a hot off the press thing that I learned. But it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so it'll be one long thing in Camtasia. I'll edit it. I wish, and if any of you know somebody who works with Camtasia, I wish I could play it back at two times speed. Like I want to be able to edit twice as fast.
I agree. Even Premiere doesn't have. I was looking for the
It's
same
such
thing.
a like people have asked constantly. You can search for that on Google on like the TechSmith who makes Camtasia forums.
Yeah.
And people are like, please, and that's just nothing. I don't know why. It seems like it makes perfect sense. What I end up doing, which is very cumbersome, is I just speed the clips up themselves
Oh, I
to
see.
2x speed, which is really annoying because once you get to a thing that you want to edit,
Mm-hmm.
you then have to undo the speed,
Oh,
refind where you were, which is, you double
yeah,
or
yeah,
you have it. No, I guess double. And then you do it. I still find that it saves a lot of time anyway, even with that extra bit of work.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that would be great. In any case, it's not
That's
like
a really
that.
good point. I'll start doing that.
Yeah.
I didn't think about. I mean, I thought about it, but I'm like, yeah, that's. I don't know. I'm afraid that it's going to be a waste of time. But if you use it, I'm definitely.
Yeah. Well, because again, these lessons are like 3 hours long or longer.
Yeah.
So I mean, now not anymore, but yeah. So that happens. Then I put markers in it, and then so it's all one file, and then it creates all the files from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I have them. I do the same thing where everything I record and everything that I output goes into my designated Google Drive on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
So it is automatically syncing immediately.
Okay.
The moment I'm outputting anything, it is always being backed up.
Yeah.
And that's because, I've lost everything before. When a hard drive dies.
Yep.
I should say I've lost everything maybe 3 or 4 times.
Oh.
So at a certain point, you're like, okay, maybe do something about it. So I finally have done something about it.
Yeah.
Google Drive, which, you know, you can buy disk space on the cloud. It's pretty cheap. I mean, it's $1.99 for like 100 gigs.
Yeah.
So it's like,
awesome.
especially if you're just getting started, 100 gigs, it's going to take you a very long way. I only very recently, now that I have like 20 Applied Houdini lessons, I think. No, 16. I don't know. A bunch.
Sounds about right. 16.
Yeah, 16 makes more sense.
Yeah.
I guess 20 with the talks. Anyway, I've only finally kicked up how much space I buy from Google to 200 gigs. So now it's like $2.99 per month. It's like, it's such a small amount for peace of mind.
Yeah, totally.
And convenience, because like you said, it syncs to other places. So if you happen to have a setup somewhere else too, you could take it on the road with you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that's when it gets kicked out. Then I upload it to CG Circuit, and that's good. I appreciate all the improvements that you made to the website. It's really cool. And then from there, yeah, I'll put the intro things also on YouTube, also on Vimeo. That in and of itself becomes a form of promotion because I have a lot of people who have subscribed to my account on YouTube or subscribed to my account on Vimeo. Yeah. Those people are often the first to know when a new Applied Houdini comes out because they just see this new, you know, promo video, which is like a best of the lesson.
Yep.
You know, it's 1 minute long. It's just literally, I go through my whole lesson. I just find all of the like most interesting things that I can show quickly while I narrate over it. And then, yeah, that becomes a promo video and it has the link back to CG Circuit where the actual lesson is. I also have, and this might be worth adding to the deck, making a website.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I made a website on Squarespace. You know, hashtag build it beautifully, I think, is their thing. And anyway, if anyone has ever listened to a podcast, they've probably heard of Squarespace.
Yep.
And it's great, though. It's great. I mean, I've used it since day one of Applied Houdini. Again, relatively inexpensive. It's like $14 a month, maybe, something like that. But you know, you get your domain name. Their templates are great, and it's fairly conducive. You know, they have different templates for different purposes. So I think a blog-oriented one has worked best for me, where I can, every time I post a lesson, it is a blog post, and you can put tags and stuff on that. And then those posts, not unlike a blog, you can just organize your main page and have filters. So it's like all my free lessons are here, which are just the blog post tagged free. All my particles lessons are here, which are just the blog post tagged particles. So you get this nice dynamic front page that, again, each post has the video again on Vimeo and a link back to CG Circuit. Yep. And what's great about having that one-stop thing is it lends an air of authenticity to what you're doing, to your brand, another word that I hate saying. Yep. But it's true. It is, as much as I'm loath to admit it. It is a brand. And that is important because you mentioned YouTube for advertising. Yes, advertise on YouTube and advertise on Facebook. It doesn't matter how small your operation is. I mean, if you're watching this, presumably you maybe have not made lessons yet. Once you make your lesson, you have as much access to Facebook advertising as anybody does. Yep. So if you throw $100 at it, that is a lot of money, but it will buy you an incredible amount of exposure, like way more than you think it would. Honestly, forget $100, throw $20 at it. Yep. $20 will buy you tens of thousands of people at least seeing your thing, which is, it's like if you were just, and I didn't do this at first, and I actually wish if I do it over again, I would have just done that earlier. Why not buy exposure? Yep. You know, it's not like you're buying page views, although in a way they are going to see it. You are literally doing, here is my promotional video. What do you think? Yep. it's an end zone. It's a run straight to the end zone of here it is. You don't have to be like, well, who's ever going to look at my video? Like well, everyone will when you pay for them to do so, and
Exactly.
they will see it. And then they can decide whether they like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it has an air of authenticity to it where it's like, wow, this thing is like important enough that it has like advertising associated with it. It's like a real product.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's surprising how inexpensive it is versus the results that it gets you back.
Yeah.
So whenever I release a video,
Yeah, if you guys are interested
do it.
about, learning more about, advertising on Facebook, YouTube and stuff, let me know, because I can put together like a quick
Yeah, that
video.
would be great because I barely know anything about it. I do it and I try to like figure out my target audience, and it
Hmm.
works pretty well. I imagine it could be better,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I'm already happy with how it works, and you can track it and everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, I post on LinkedIn. I accept anybody who wants to be my LinkedIn friend.
Yeah.
Literally anybody who contacts me, I will add, because it becomes a place where it's the same thing. When I post a new thing,
Hmm.
they see it first, and it's like a connection where it's like, oh, the guy that I'm linked in with has a new, like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just another avenue for you to just, show them what you're doing.
Yeah, and this the important, like, especially if you do this kind of stuff, is really important when you have your branding, done well, like we said in the images, and Steve has done such a good job that when people start to seeing these advertisements, they will recognize right away that
Yeah.
it's a new tutorial on Hista, that it's Steve that is doing this, right? So it's really great.
It's
And
really gratifying too, when these new videos go up and I'll get, I mean, I can't stress enough how doing this is not just about the money and how it really is endearing, helping people and people contacting you and like putting up a new promo video and people being like, oh my God, the new Applied Houdini is here. Like, I thought I was going to go to bed, but I guess I can't now. Like it's just like things like that. I literally have in my Gmail a tag that says nice. So whenever anybody says something like that, I just tag it as nice. So now I can just go on my Gmail and be like, oh, look at all the nice things that people said
that's
about what
great.
we're doing here.
That's
It's
great.
cool. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So next, we can talk. We talked a little bit about promotion. So we go through publishing and promotion. So how to choose a platform, right? So the things that I always like to ask myself when I want to choose a platform is like, is it easy to be found, right? So some people like to be like their own island, in a sense, and that works for them. Some people like to be part of something a little bit bigger, and that works for them. So see what works best for you and choose, and but always think about, okay, is it easy to be found, right? The other thing is, if it is a platform, is it a platform that is just that allows me to just upload things and then I do all the work about everything, or it is a platform that is specifically on a subject. Like, for example, CG Circuit. One of the things that I mean, I like it because I built it, but I built it because I believed in creating a platform that was focused on a subject, and the subject that I like is the CG, right? So is it something, when you choose something, I think it's good to be part of something that other people are joining, and so that if a person that wants to find a tutorial on something related to CG, they can think about the platform and say, okay, let me see if there is something there. So that's a good thing to think about. Also, there are some platforms that do the promotions for you, and sometimes so when those kinds of platforms, they do the promotions for you. Just make sure that it is promotion, the type of promotion is what works for you, right? For example, we at CG Circuit, we do promotion, like we pay to do some Facebook advertisement for people. But we first, before we do anything, we do contact the author and say, hey, we're thinking about this. What do you think? And we work together to create a campaign together. I know that there is some other platforms out there that they just, even if the content is like $1,000, they just sell it for $9.99, right? And the author doesn't have any control over that. So those are the things that you might want to think about. Maybe it works for you. That's great. But do think about that stuff. Also, like, obviously look at the payment system, see if the payment is something that works for you, and also video protection. So Vishal here asked if there are any steps that we take for piracy. So piracy is one of the things that it's always on my mind. It's always on at CG Circuit, we always think about that, and we do we have the technology that we have behind our video streaming is really powerful. But as you can see, even Netflix and places like that, they don't have 100% protection. I think that if somebody tells you there's 100% protection, they're either not telling the truth, or that 100% protection is going to last 3 months because people are going to find another way to get in and steal videos. That's just going to happen, right? So I mean, it's really hard for me to say that because but it's just the truth.
It's true. I mean, that's the way it is. There's nothing that can't be stolen that's digital. I mean, it's just the way it is. All you can do is discourage it, which goes a long way. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that my lessons have been recorded, but that's really all you need to do. There's really nothing that could prevent somebody from, I mean, at the very least, somebody could always point their camera recorder at their screen and record it. So it's like, there's literally nothing that can stop it.
Exactly.
And even easier than that, people could do a Camtasia recording, ironically, of it. But being able to discourage it, the streaming nature of it discourages it quite a bit. And often in the time that's most critical, which is when it first comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It will take time for someone usually to gravitate towards figuring out how to Camtasia it, and then they have to like cut the videos up, and then they have to upload it and everything else. So I think that the streaming way that it is done here is really the best case scenario. Mm-hmm. For this kind of thing.
Yeah, and also I like to also mention here that's why it's very important that you don't make it about selling. It's really the thing is about helping people, because when you start helping people, you're going to create a relationship with those people. And so when you establish that relationship, there are people, even though somebody steals your tutorial and it's out there, those people most likely those people are not gonna watch it pirated, right?
For sure. And even crazier than that, I've had so many people that are fans of Applied Houdini show me where things are being pirated, or if somebody like took my lesson and was like transformed it not into their own lesson, but there was one person who was selling the results of the lesson, the actual like Houdini file that I help you create.
I see.
And so there's people like pointed it out to me, and I was able to resolve it with that person. Like, hey, listen, maybe don't do that anymore. And after some discussion, it worked out. So, but the point is that your customers will become advocates for it because they want to see you succeed. I mean, I was at a movie last night at an independent movie theater, and I bought $6 popcorn. Not because I had to, because I wanted to see that movie theater succeed. I have a relationship with this local cinema. It's just like, most people are not like that. Mm-hmm. And most people, honestly, probably wouldn't even know where to find the pirated things anyway.
Yeah.
So the overall, it is an issue, but in the same way that the movies and music industries have soldiered on in the face of piracy, it won't end up being a big deal.
Yeah, and also as a platform, besides the technology side of things, if like Steve said, we do, either the authors or people that like the platform, they come to us and say, hey, look at this link, they're sharing this tutorial. And when that happens, we have the systems in place that we contact in official ways, sometimes forceful ways, to contact the host of the
Yeah,
of the
and that can work, actually.
yeah.
Surprisingly so. If you do have a relationship with a lot of these file hosting websites, they don't necessarily want to be party to this. I mean, they let it happen. They turn a blind eye to it, but then once you point it out, they'll take it down. And a lot of times these people that pirated your stuff in the first place, they stole it, put it up, and moved on. So if you get it taken down, a lot of times it actually doesn't go back up again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great that CG Circuit, does that too.
Yeah. If you're curious about this, at the bottom in the footer, there is a link that says DMCA notice. Read through that, and those are basically the umbrella that we are under to avoid that this happens. So to make sure that we take the appropriate steps for protecting the content. Okay, so after you chose a platform, then you have the content. Now it's time for you to put yourself out there, right? So create your profile on whatever platform. What you see here is the part of the profile on my profile on CG Circuit. So make sure that you complete it 100%. The last thing you want to do is that to have a great content and then they go on your profile and it's empty, right? People want to establish that relationship with you. So make sure that it's 100% completed. Don't put as much info, put as much info. Sorry about the typo. So again, put as much info on you as possible, and post images of your work, because again, people like to see what you've done in the past, how credible you are. So if you have stuff like that, great, put it on. And also, as far as a picture, put a good picture of yourself there. If you don't want to show yourself, I advise against it, but if you just don't want to put your image out there, create at least an appealing one, an avatar that is appealing, and stuff like that. But again, your profile is really what people are going to pay a lot of attention to. Then another thing that your platform should provide is a way for you to monitor traffic, right? So analytics. So you should have, your platform should have a place where you can take if you go on Google Analytics, you can sign up for it. It's free, and then they will give you an ID. You should choose a platform that allows you to paste the ID in your profile, and CG Circuit does that. So that way you can track all the traffic that goes through your pages, right? So the things that you should really track and should really pay attention to is, of course, how many people visited, but also you can track things like, okay, where did the traffic came from? Did it come from Facebook? Did it come from another website that you have no idea, that maybe a blog somewhere posted a link to your site, and so a lot of people are coming from that? That's a good way for you to say, oh, I like that blog. They posted already something on me. Maybe I can connect with them and say, hey, do you want to interview me? Stuff like that. But also, if you end up paying for, one of the things that some people do is to go in places like ArtStation, and we do the same thing, and pay ArtStation so that you can post an article about your tutorial and everything. So if you do that, they will say, okay, I gave you a certain amount of what's the term? I'm forgetting the term now, of impression of your banner on ArtStation. So, and then they'll give you some numbers, right? Like how many people clicked on that banner, right? So with this, if you have a Google Analytics set up on the site, you will be able to see how many people came from ArtStation, so that you can determine, okay, is it worth for me paying again ArtStation to do advertising again? And I know ArtStation has been really, really great working with. They have an insane amount of traffic. So if you want to do like really, really focused advertisement, do it through there, because it's it really.
That's good advice. I don't do that yet.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. I mean, they are on the expensive side of the advertisement, but
if it's as targeted as it would be,
exactly
can be more valuable anyway.
And they have millions of people, literally millions of people every month.
Yeah, it seems like everyone hosts their demo reels on ArtStation these days, so that makes sense.
Yeah. But also, you should track also what course they visited more. If you have more than one course, you will be able to see which one is the most successful course, so that you can start thinking, what was about that tutorial that was successful? Was it the subject? Is it something different I did? So you can start investigating more for your future tutorials. But also the bounce rate. The bounce rate is the rate at which people, so the amount of people that come in, and how many people out of those people that came in a certain page, they left the page within the first few seconds. So that means that there was something that didn't interest them, something wrong with the page, something that they didn't like. So as soon as you see a high bounce rate on a certain page, go and check out what was wrong, right? And then ask yourself, ask your audience, and everything. Yeah, basically that's what it basically just said. So courses with more bounce rate is a good thing to track. So at the end, then you can upload your content. So what you see here is a little screenshot from the CG Circuit Create Course page. And so this is also the time when you start using the research data, and then choose a price. The price is a science. It's an art. So there is a lot of talk that we can give about pricing. But when you choose a price, think of the value that you're giving to people. And then obviously your rate, you don't want to make things too cheap. You need to make it like, if you want to, like, a lot of people have very hard time charging, the money that they think they deserve, because they think nobody's going to pay me that money. But there's a lot of work that you put into this. If you think that you're giving a lot of value to people, just pick the price that works for you. You will not regret it later. So then promotion strategies. Again, we talked a little bit about this, the promo video magnet on YouTube and Vimeo. So, and like Stephen was saying, put a free video out there with a link to CG Circuit. Another thing that you can do is to share the page on Facebook, and then you can boost the post. And by boosting, that's when you go into choosing the right audience. And so you give it a budget. You can say, I don't want to spend more than X on this campaign. And then Facebook will determine the best course of action there and put it in front of as many people as possible with that budget. And then and use the platform tools. One of the things that Stephen does really, really well is that every time that there is a new tutorial online, he goes on CG Circuit, and in CG Circuit there's a way to email the people that have purchased your previous content. But also there's also a functionality where you have your own link, and then by using that link, you get a lot more money for those transactions. So that's exactly what Stephen does. He emails everybody that purchased previously and say, hey, I just published this new tutorial, check it out. So definitely use whatever tools the platform gives you. And then again, using the research, go to those groups and to those places that your audience is hanging out, and post links there. And again, reach out to blogs and podcasts to see if they are interested in creating a content about you and your content. All right, Steve. So you talked a little bit about the promotion that you do here, right? Do you have any? Maybe here we can approach it a little bit differently. Do you see? Do you have any visibility on what maybe other people do or might do that it's not a good idea, that like things to avoid when you promote your content?
Yeah, I think that yes. I think that you should really take almost like the way people approach demo reels to that. You often hear in the industry that, the demo reel, put your best stuff first and keep it short, and don't and you're going to be judged on the worst thing in your demo reel. I take all of those lessons and apply it to these little promo videos. So the structure of every single one of my promo videos is the same, which is very quick of the title card, usually with the coolest image. Mm-hmm. Then it's very quick, like a half a second. Then it moves right into the end result, the coolest results that we come up with for the lesson. Bam. Plays. I usually play through it twice. Then I move into in like descending order, or at least related to what I'm talking about. But yes, packing the cool stuff first, where it's like, here's like a cool shot of me like changing render settings and it's like updating, and then here's like a cool shot of me like finally getting this one mechanism to work. It's that kind of thing. I think sometimes what I see is people will literally put videos of like, here we are flying around the Houdini interface, like zooming in and like moving nodes around really fast. And it's like, I don't know. I think that can be compelling like the first time you see it, but I've seen that so much. I want to be blown away. Like I want to be dazzled by, I want to watch this video.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know? It's like watching the trailer for a movie. I have to at least want to be interested by the trailer. I may still not like the movie, but I have to at least like the trailer. If I don't like the trailer, then I'm not going to even bother the movie. So yeah, with the demo reel, yeah, you put your best stuff first, and don't put anything that is like, well, I need to represent this thing because I've done it before. It's like, well, no, just keep it short and sweet. Brevity is the soul of wit and all that. So yeah, I think that's the main thing. You know more than I do about maybe how to reach specific audiences, but I would just say in general, you have these analytics tools to tell you how people are responding to your ads. So that would be a tip in the sense that don't just throw your ad out there and be like, everybody, from 0 to 60, every country, everything ever. It's like, that's no good. Be logical about who will probably respond to this in terms of, in particular with regards to age. That's the main one. There's no point of heavily promoting your thing in China if most people aren't speaking English at a level that they are going to need to understand a complicated work.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, unless you have a Chinese version of your video, in which case, great.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's easy to be like, well, maybe some people will. Well, it's like, yeah, maybe, but it would just be better spent channeling it towards the avenues that are much more likely going to work.
Yeah, and I don't know, if anybody has an experience with advertising with the social media and stuff, but the thing about when you do pick an audience on the social media for your advertisement, that's what the things that you would actually pick. You can say, what is your age range, right? Or what countries?
Or even interests sometimes. If you're talking about Facebook or YouTube for that matter, it's like, what kind of videos do I want this to play on? Well, I want it to play on either other video tutorial videos or honestly, even just in general, because it doesn't get that granular. In general, it's like, if people are interested in action and fantasy movies, maybe they'd be interested in learning how to make such a thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 100% hit rate, but you're at least narrowing it down to that. Sure.
Yeah. And also I've seen, I heard of really amazing results of people that have done basically this. They've gone on Facebook. They posted videos of just like little small videos on the subject, on the same subject, and maybe about the author, about themselves, making the tutorial, talk a little bit about the tutorial and the subject.
Yeah.
So posted it on Facebook as videos, and then in when you do the advertisement, you can make it. You can target those people that have engaged with those videos.
Yeah.
If people have watched those videos, it's because they're interested in the subject.
Yeah.
So Facebook says, okay, if these people are interested in the subject, that's what I'm going to go. You decide to have them targeted so that they can always be reminded that there is something that can help them here. That they, it might not be free, it might be free. But at least it's a good way to target those people so that you can.
And that goes back to having like a Facebook page or a Facebook group, which I think is the same thing. You have those people will, like your page, and then they'll just be there. There's your little captive audience, but they want to be there.
Yes.
And you can post. So what I end up doing is I post student work. People will send me their videos, and if they're good, which they all very often are, which is really gratifying also. But posting those up, they get to have people driven to their art station or wherever they have it posted. And then people interact with it and they see it. And then, yes, then you can also post when you have a new lesson. It's just part of the stream of it. You don't have to make this your like day job. The whole point of this is that it's not. I just will post these things periodically, but it's enough that people know that you're still alive. That like I haven't put up a lesson since April. I mean, until this last week. But it's but I would still post student work and things like that, or even idle musings. Like, here's a thing that I saw was cool, and then yes, and then you drop in your actual ad, and then the ad can say, yeah, people that like this group. So right there, there could be hundreds or thousands of people that are extremely specifically targeted, and it's great. I also was just recalled too something else I wanted to say with regards to the free content. That was something that you had said to me when I first started this whole thing, was that maybe make a free lesson. And what I ended up doing is I made 2 lessons at once, which was like, I didn't like the idea of just posting a free lesson and then maybe never getting around to doing the paid content. So I did both at once, kind of the way that like movies will film like the movie and the sequel at the same time. And yeah, being able to offer an entire free lesson, not even necessarily, I think that taking a section of a paid lesson out is a really good idea. That had never even occurred to me. But at least the way that I had been doing it, which is the intro lesson for rigid bodies, dynamics, the intro lesson for particles, the intro lesson for smoke, is an entire lesson from beginning to end that is free. There's nothing people like more than a fully formed, great professional grade, just like your paid content will be, for free. It is such incredible promotion. There's constantly people that come to me that are like, oh man, you got all these lessons and I heard they're good, but like, I don't know if it's like for my skill level or something. It's like, well, listen, there's literally no risk. Watch the first lesson. It's fully formed. It's not just a sample. It is the thing. It's the product.
Yes.
If you like it, you like it. And they usually do. And it gives people, it's so much more confidence for people to pay what you're asking for. Because you're right. Totally charge what you think the content is worth. Don't undersell it. For sure, do not do that. But on their end, they'll just feel more comfortable doing that if they literally know what they're getting. So it might seem like the first one I do is not even going to be worth something, but don't think of it that way. Maybe just do both at once. And then now you've got the one paid and the one unpaid.
Yeah, I actually forgot that you did both at the same time. That's actually a really, really good point. Because that's what we keep telling people. The first one, especially if this is the first time that you do it, people need to get used to your style and stuff. So put it for free, and then then the next one you can start.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be crazy. Like, again, my lessons now are 3 hours long. My first 2 lessons were like an hour and a half each. It's the same thing. Like, there's actually less video in my first 2 lessons than there is in my newest one.
Correct.
So it's like, it doesn't have to even be, it could just be one long thing that you just cut into 2 pieces. The first half is free. The second half is going to cost.
Yep. Very true. Cool.
Yeah.
So now, last words, we're basically at the end. We did go on the 2 hours here. So the last word that I want to mention is like, don't get stuck on perfection, especially if it's the first time you do it. Just do whatever you can. If all this process seems overwhelming, it doesn't have to be perfect. Literally, the most important thing is that you do it, right? Then you get better with time. Then you can start applying this process, right? But just create content, put it out there, let people know your name, put yourself out there. Because like Steven was saying, is like when you start helping people, and people are going to contact you saying, oh, thank you very much. I wasn't able to do this and now I can, thank you so much for explaining this to me. I never was able to understand this concept and now I can, right? I've received so many of those emails, and it's
Yeah.
super gratifying. So definitely don't get stuck on perfection. The most important thing is to just do it and publish stuff. If that's that, of course you're here, you want to publish stuff.
Yeah.
Then again, start small if necessary. It doesn't have to be hours long. You can literally start with like a 15-minute video, right? And then maybe the next one you do 20 minutes, just so that you can get a style going. You can get, again, people talking about you and everything. Just start, if necessary, start small. And also this is a very important thing, is to always ask for feedback from your viewers. So that's the best way that you can create content. If your viewers are asking for something and then you deliver, they're gonna love you, right? You're gonna establish that relationship, the relationship that we talked about earlier. So they're gonna be very, very grateful that you did. And then so if you want, all this process, if you really want to create a content and you do want to you don't want to start small, you want to start best way you can, but you do want like a step-by-step help, from research all the way to promotion. Again, at CG Circuit, you can contact us at teachmehow@CG Circuit, and we can help you out any way we can. So that is it as far as the deck. So here I have 3 questions. Oh, actually 2 questions that I can ask, because I can answer because we answered already one. So is that okay, Steve, if we go through these questions?
Good.
Great. So the first question is from Chris Orpilla. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So it says, will this presentation deck be available at the end of the webinar? Yes, I will make this available as a download, so you can view it later. And then the other one, if there is any book recommendation for teaching, I don't have a recommendation for teaching specifically, but I do have 2 recommendation of books that change the way that I think about making tutorials, running a business, everything. So the first one is Made to Stick. So Made to Stick, and I can post links on this, with the link in the same page as going to have the deck for the webinar. So Made to Stick is basically a book that talks about how to write the right way, in a way that actually sticks with people, right? So that is really, really important for when you want to write a description, the way to structure it, and if you don't want to read the whole book, because maybe it has a little bit too much information, if you read just it's the very first part of the first chapter. It starts with a story, and then it tells you, okay, are you compelled about that story? Are you drawn in about that story? And you absolutely say yes. But then it tells you, okay, now compare it to this. And it goes through a piece that is written beautifully, but it is so dry that then when it's done, the author says, okay, what do you remember about that second piece that I read to you? And you do not remember anything. Yeah. So that is a great, like, if you don't want to read the whole book, you read only that first part of the chapter. It makes a big difference. The other book is The Lean Startup. The Lean Startup is an amazing book that talks about specifically business, but you can apply the same concept to everything, including teaching, right? And the main thing about the book really is that when you're about to start doing anything, start small. Start small with a prototype, put it in front of people, get feedback, and basically do improvements, right? Based on the feedback. That's how they started doing a huge, like you might see online a lot of times, or even like sometimes I feel like they're doing the same thing, where they're putting these features where they're not necessarily like all fleshed out, but then they will flesh it out as they go, and they will collect feedback from people, right, from the beta program and everything. So you can literally apply to anything. So that's a book those are the two books that I really like to recommend.
Cool.
So we have what about you, Steve? Do you have a recommendation for books on teaching specifically?
I am gonna say no, I don't.
Sounds good.
Yeah, honestly, no.
All right. So then Vishal asked experience versus research. Do you mind elaborate on that?
I could try to interpret that question, I think.
Go ahead.
I think what the question might be, oh, there it is. Maybe which is more important? To come at it with years of industry experience, or to come at it by maybe learning by, researching what is out there.
Okay.
That's what the question is.
So what do you think?
I mean, I'm going to be biased in saying experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's certainly what I'm selling. I think that is what people want to buy, is to learn from experience. I think, though, that experience tends to come from research, though.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like an Ouroboros of, it's a circle.
Yeah.
So I think my gut tells me experience, but there's still different levels of experience anyway. And just to reiterate, that's how you learn. You're always learning, you're always researching, and you're always just getting more experience. I mean, as I sit here now, having done Applied Houdini for a couple of years, like 4 years from now, I mean, I'll know even more. I'll have even more experience and have done more research to get there.
Yes.
So it's like, however you learn, however you gain your experience, whether it's through learning on your own or from the job or whatever, you're gaining experience anyway. So I don't think it's really one over the other.
Yeah. And if I could add something to that, is like, a lot of times, you get it when you get a promotion for a tutorial, you have, that promotion says, okay, Steven from ILM or Carlos Antonetti from Blizzard Entertainment or something like that. And that's impressive, right? But, some people might not live in an area that has visual effects studios and stuff like that, right? So if you do want to get into creating content and you just don't have experience, I would like Steve was saying, start with the research and start small and collect feedback, and then you'll start learning, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a big name in your experience, but you definitely have to start creating that experience.
And there are people that I've seen do tutorials. Again, on Facebook, there are a variety of Houdini effects groups, Houdini TD groups. And there are regulars on there that, as near as I can tell, they're not working at like really big studios, and that doesn't have any bearing on their skill. Mm-hmm. And I would hope at this point that, I am trafficking more on the Applied Houdini name than my own like particular experience. I mean, I'm not blind to the fact that I imagine it gives me some authenticity, but nonetheless, there are people that I see posting all the time who have even regular series that they're not from an ILM or a Weta or anything, but they are still very good. And that's what carries the day. And people will only need to see one taste of your style, and they'll be like, oh, it was good. It's like somebody watching a music video on YouTube. They don't need to know the pedigree of the singers or the producers or the writers or the filmers or anything else. You might also be excited to hear the next Radiohead song, but you will also just give a chance to a song you haven't heard before, and then you like it, and then that's it. Yeah. And then now I like that band, and that's over. It doesn't matter anymore what the pedigree was. Now you just like that thing.
Totally. That's really well said there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really nice. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you can always, go back to the thing that we were saying before, which is add your spin to it, or the story that I was telling about my brother, so as soon as my brother explained to me things in a very different way, I understood everything. So if that's the case with you, if you don't have any experience, but you just have a way to explain things
Yeah.
that, you know, that is very easy for people to understand, then that's also something that.
And you don't need to be a master of everything. You could just specialize in something very specific that is just something that people still want, you know? It doesn't have to be as expansive as Applied Houdini has become.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be like, I'm good at doing level design in Unreal Tournament Engine, and that's the thing that I do.
Yep.
And I'm learning how to do it, and as I'm learning how to do it, and this is applied, but as you're learning how to do it, you turn around and teach people how to do it.
Yep, exactly.
Simple as that.
Yep. Cool. Do we have any other questions?
Yep.
Okay, we have, so learn how to learn as these 4 steps. Choose a concept, pretend to teach it to a child. Yeah, yes, very, very much. Identify gaps and go back to source material. Review and simplify. Write, explain, fill the gaps and simplify. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's that's what it is. That's right.
Yeah, don't try to impress people with how like wordy you are and by taking a long time to say something simple. It's try to boil it down into the simplest terms possible. I mean, that's always what works. It always has been.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are at 2 hours and 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do, if you guys want to ask more questions, please reach out to us at info@cgcircuit.com, and I will make sure to collect all the questions. And I'm either going to reply directly to you, or I might also do a video where I respond to those questions on a video form so that I can share it with everybody. Yeah, other than that, Steve, is there anything else you wanna?
No, I think that was pretty good. I felt good about that.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you next time. See,
cool.
I didn't write the outro here, so I came up with it on the outro there.
It works.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.